Welcome students, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we are going to start the preparation for the quiz competition. So here is the preparatory video. There are the chapters which we are going to cover for biology 5090 code, unit 1 of O'2, respiration, excretion and homeostasis. Fine, so let's start from what is the aerobic respiration. So we know that aerobic respiration, you have studied about the aerobic respiration where we need oxygen for this respiration. So glucose in the presence of oxygen will produce the byproduct carbon dioxide, water and the large amount of energy in aerobic respiration. This is what you have to keep in mind, the difference between aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic which actually the glucose in the presence of oxygen will produce these two products and large amount of energy. But the anaerobic, what is anaerobic respiration, where glucose convert into lactic acid and produce a very small amount of energy. So here the glucose which is used up in the absence of oxygen and will produce lactic acid. This process is actually happening or occurring in the muscles in human body. So how the anaerobic respiration occur in yeast? So this is what the product will produce. So glucose in the absence of oxygen will be broken down and converted into ethanol and carbon dioxide. This is what the carbon dioxide which give rise to the dough, and during this process is also called as the fermentation and alcoholic fermentation. So the name is actually due to the production of alcohol due to the activity of yeast. So alcohol is basically you can say evaporate during baking or at higher temperature. Here are some questions that what is inhalation. So you have to explain the process. So inhalation is inhaling the air. You know very well and you have studied a lot about the inhalation process, that in which we are inhaling oxygen and we inhaling obviously through the nasal cavity, and then finally it move from the larynx and then trachea to it further into the bronchioles and then lungs, and the finally to the alveoli structure where the diffusion actually occur, and to diffuse out, the diffusion of gases occur, the carbon dioxide is entering into the lungs and from lungs oxygen is entering into the blood. So here during inhalation the diaphragm actually contract and move downward or flatten. As you can see in the both images, here you can see like the diaphragm how it's flatten and moving downward, and here you can also see the diaphragm contract and flatten. The images would be more clear when you will see on the next slide. So in this the external intercostal muscles are shown. So you can see that external intercostal muscles like the ribs muscles, they contract while the internal intercostal muscles will relax, and the diaphragm movement you can also see in both. So what's written, that ribs move upward and outward, as you can see in the image, like how the ribs are moving upward and outward. The chest will expand. This will causes the air flows inside, and the volume of the thoracic cavity will increase and also decreases pressure inside the thoracic cavity, and due to which the extra is that it is now less than that of the external air pressure. So in the next you can see the exhalation process. Again, the exhalation, the air which is coming out of the nostrils, like the carbon dioxide. And here one more thing that you can see in inhalation, like when the air move from the nasal cavity into the trachea, that is also called as windpipe, and then further divided into the bronchus, and then it enter finally into the lungs, where from there are a number of bronchioles which are ending with the alveoli structure. This whole, like from the nostrils is actually containing the hair which trap the dust particle and all the foreign particles to prevent the entry of those harmful chemicals and particles into the lungs. Then from trachea to onward there is a cilia lining and with the epithelium lining, which is actually performing the the function trapping the dust particle and the bacteria, so it help to sweep these particles up to the bronchi and trachea into the pharynx. So here which further is entered into the esophagus and swallowed into the esophagus. So in exhalation, you can see that from alveoli to this process is coming out or causing the exhalation from alveoli to the bronchioles and then lungs, and from bronchus into trachea, and then from trachea you can see like the carbon dioxide which is coming out from the body. This is actually after the whole procedure which is happening in the alveoli after the diffusion process. So here during exhalation what happened, you can see here, now you can clearly see the difference between how the diaphragm arched up. Look at this image, second one, how the diaphragm arched up and relaxes, and even in this diagram you can see, and how the ribs move downward and inward. You can see by comparing both pictures. Here move upward and outward, and in this picture move downward, ribs move downward and inward. Just contract, air flows out, due to which the volume of the thoracic cavity will decrease, and due to which the pressure increases on the thoracic cavity and then of the lungs as well. Here is how you can label and what are the function of the alveolar structure, which I told right now, that what's happening at the end of in the lungs, the end portion is actually the alveolus structure where the diffusion is happening of the car. So here you can see how the carbon dioxide which diffuses out present in the blood, it is actually coming inside the alveolus, and oxygen which is from the lungs to bronchial and then alveolus, it is entering into the red blood cells. So the blood which is you can see here, this is completely oxygenated, and blood, the one which is entering, it's actually deoxygenated. So the deoxygenated blood will automatically will turn out into the oxygenated blood after passing from the lungs. So what is the next topic is excretion. What is excretion? Is the removal of the waste substances and the toxic material of metabolism from the body. So here you have to name some excretory organs and their products. So kidney, skin, lungs and liver are the excretory organs, and the waste products which are coming out from the body through the kidneys are urea, water, and some of the mineral salts or the mineral ions or the salts. Through skin you can see during sweating water vapors and mineral ions are coming out, and from the lungs you have seen in the previous chapter respiration, the carbon dioxide and water vapors are coming out from the body, and liver, the bile pigments. So here you have to label the urinary system, how you can, the kidneys with the right and the left one, the ureter, and then you can see the urinary bladder and then urethra, and you have to also give tell the function one by one. So kidney, which is actually help in the formation of urine, which is coming out from the kidney through this ureter. You can see this tube, ureter. So from ureter it will finally come into the urinary bladder and store temporarily before ejaculation, and urethra is actually that tube or that opening through which the urine comes out. So here is the structure and the function of the nephron. So here you can see the structure of the nephron, the glomerulus, the Bowman's capsule, in which the glomerulus is the point where filtration occurs. So you can even see the arrow which is pointing, and then it's moving toward the loop of Henle and then the collecting duct. So what is the function of the nephron? There are actually, nephron is performing two functions. The one is filtration and the second is reabsorption. So filtration done by glomerulus. Here you can see you have studied in detail during lectures that how this filtration occur, and then selective reabsorption of some of the compounds like glucose and amino acids, mineral salts and water, it actually occur in the convoluted tubule, firstly of glucose, and then mineral salts in loop of Henle, and then in collecting duct all the water will be reabsorbed. So what is homeostasis? Homeostasis is actually the maintenance of the constant internal environment. So you have to know about what is the negative feedback, what is this process. Negative feedback is actually the self-regulatory system. If anything is let's suppose just take the example which is given below, blood sugar glucose level or the water or anything, if it is increasing from their optimum level, so coming back to the optimum, let's suppose if it increased, blood sugar level is increased, so by decreasing and coming back to again to the original point. This is called as a negative feedback. So self-regulatory system in which it feeds back to the input a part of the system's output so as to reverse the direction of change of the output. The process reduces the output of a system in order to stabilize or re-establish the internal system. So here you can see the example of blood glucose level is given, that after meal small intestine absorb glucose from digested food, blood glucose level rise. If it rise, then the optimum, so increased blood glucose level stimulate the beta cells in the pancreas to produce insulin, and this production of insulin will cause again the glucose level to decrease, and the blood glucose level fall in the blood and will be back on the normal level. Here you have to label the skin structure and also explain the functions of the skin structure one by one. Here we have to do, as you can see, the hair, here are the nerve endings, fine. Then there are some glands, and this is the hair follicle in which the hair is embedded, and these are the hair erector muscles. Here you can see hair follicle, hair papilla. These are the adipose tissues in the dermis layer, and here you can see that your epidermis, dermis layer, hypodermis, and then your muscles. And here are the sweat glands which are present on the skin, through which the sweat is coming out from the body. So one by one we will see the function. Sweat glands occur in all over the body, but it's especially present to the areas like forehead and the armpits and the palms and the soles of the feet. So sweat is mainly the water which also contains some salts, and what is the main function is to control the body temperature. This is what, when due to the latent heat of vaporization, this is the concept you have already learned, studied in detail, that how this sweat through sweat gland, when sweat comes out from the body, so due to latent heat of vaporization, when this sweat vaporizes from the body, it will cause or gives out the cooling effect to the body. And then what is the function of hair follicle and hair erector muscles? So there in the image you can see, this is the hair is placed in a hollow tube is called as hair follicle, so hair root, and this hair, how it helps the skin to control the body temperature. Actually, hair present on the skin has the main function to protect the skin from the UV rays and also to maintain the temperature of the body. The main function is to maintain the body temperature. So when there is overheating or in summers, body starts to sweat, which is released from the pores of the sweat glands present along with the hair follicle. So it contracts, it causes the hair to stand erect or gives the goosebumps. And when during winter, where the hair erector muscles will cause the erection of the hair, and it causes the goosebumps, due to which the air will trap into the hair layer, and it will cause the further loss of temperature from the body. This is actually happening in some of the animals which are bearing fur on their body, fine, but also helps in the human as body as well. What is the function of the blood vessels? So blood vessel cause vasodilation and vasoconstriction during summer and during winter, respectively. So the blood vessels of the dermis provide nutrient to the skin, also help to regulate the body temperature. Heat makes the blood vessels enlarge or dilate. During summer, when there is more temperature outside than that of body temperature, our body temperature 37 degrees Celsius. So when there is increase in body temperature, so our body try to regulate that body temperature, and even if the internal body temperature is rising, so it will try to balance that body temperature. How? By the blood vessels dilation. This blood vessel dilation will cause the heat loss through directly radiation, conduction, convection, or secondly through the sweat glands. It will just give out the heat to or the water to the sweat glands, and from sweat glands it will out from the sweat pores in the form of sweat and will cool down the body temperature. Same in the winters, the vasoconstriction will occur, the blood vessels will constrict, due to which there are many other processes happening which you have studied in detail. So here that constriction will cause heat retention in the body. Fine, metabolic activity will increases, the breathing rate will slow down, and you have to take in those days hotter things to eat and which will increase your internal body temperature. So what is the function of the nerve endings? Nerve ending actually senses pain, touch, so they are receptors which actually taking all the stimulus, whatever the change in the environment, whether it's touch, it's pain, or it's sense or temperature. Some areas of the skin, they contain more nerve endings than other. For example, the fingertips and the toes, you can easily sense or touch the increase in temperature. So these nerve endings then further send message to the brain, and brain will actually give the message that what the body have to do. The same the process which is occurring in our skin, that how the body temperature is regulated through all the process, like this is how the nerve ending which actually stimulate the brain, that whatever the stimulus they're detecting, they will give out the message to the brain, and brain will actually cause the through vasodilation or vasoconstriction will lower down the body temperature. This is all about the topic. You have to prepare your quiz very well. So thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.